player prop wise for this game, Cooper Flagg's points prop has gotten bet up a bit. Now, there is VIG toward the under for sure at minus 140. Points prop is at 19.5 at BetMGM. Cryer 16.5, a little bit of juice to the under. Knipple 14.5, about the same amount of VIG to the under as Flagg in that regard. And Sharp 13.5, Proctor 12.5, so on and so forth. Anyone stand out to you in this game? As you can maybe hear in my handicap, I'm probably going to stay away from everything pregame and wait to see how it plays out. Maybe not in terms of live betting a player prop, but at least maybe trying to get a better number on Houston in-game. But player prop-wise for you, whether you're betting it or not, anything on the board intrigue you?
To me, the most intriguing bet would be on Tyrese Proctor, either over points or over threes, just because with the way that Duke's ball screen offense works, it's not just one guy. It's not just Proctor. It's almost split completely down the middle between Knipple, Flagg, Proctor, and Sion James. So all four of them are going to take turns running that ball screen coverage. And against Houston, whoever has the ball in their hands when the screen is set is unlikely to be the one to score because they're working to get the ball out of your hands. When it comes to jump shots, which Houston allows at a 90th percentile rate, by far, Duke's most frequent jump shooter on the season in terms of rate is Tyrese Proctor. He's taken the most attempts. He also is the best in terms of making them at a 43% field goal rate and 60% effective field goal. So if we're thinking about Duke setting these screens evenly through four guys, and then somebody having to hit those shots off of the weak side pick and roll, Proctor is the best bet to be able to do that. He's also been red hot in the tournament. Now you could argue regression and variance, but
Yeah.
Proctor makes the most sense as someone who will take advantage of this Houston matchup.
Right. I'm with you. That's the hard part about screaming variance with, or trying to dictate it one way or the other in regards to your bets, because Proctor is set up for a big game, but as you hinted at, he's also shooting over 64% from three at the tournament. So does that continue? I would love, and it's not going to happen, but I would love for a sports book out there to post over under one or a half, essentially, made three for Isaiah Evans. And I would bet a lot on the over. He hasn't done anything in this tournament, and he's also been limited minutes-wise, and maybe that trends into this game where Shire doesn't think he's ready or isn't fit for the physicality, as we've touched on throughout this podcast, and maybe that's what you're saying. But
Yeah.
I think Evans is good for 1-3 in this game just based on Houston's defensive scheme, and he should get at least one or two open jumpers, even if he plays 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that he's not going to be able to play much because of the physicality, but if he plays 3 minutes, he'll take three threes. So
Right.
if we're playing the averages and he plays 3 minutes, takes three threes, then yeah, he'll probably make one. The other prop, and we touched on this earlier, is Roberts, because I think on the Duke switching scheme, Roberts has a better advantage and a better matchup on the Duke smalls than Houston's guards have on the Duke bigs.
Yeah, and if we think about positive variance or positive regression for players, Roberts hasn't done much at all over the last two games, and he was dealing with foul trouble in Houston's most recent game against Tennessee. So if we think about a player outperforming their expectation, or at least as it relates to the last two matchups, I think Roberts is a decent bet. And on that note, if we look at futures and not title features, and I do want to get to that in a moment to close up the conversation, but MOP odds, big number on a guy like Juwan Roberts at 40-1 over at BetMGM, if you like Houston. Now, if we look from top to bottom, Cooper Flagg, plus 105. Those are better odds than you're getting on Duke to win the title at minus 110. So I would argue if you like Duke to win it all, maybe Flagg is a decent option. Now, I'm curious to hear your perspective on whether Flagg is set up for success against the Cougars, despite the fact that we've already touched on the trap and then that leading to some open threes. Flagg isn't necessarily a three-point shooter, at least if you look at his shooting splits. Walter Clayton plus 375, Janai Broom plus 700, LJ Cryer 10-1, Uzan 12-1, Knipple 20-1, Pettiford also 20-1. So any long shots like a guy in Roberts, or would you trend towards the favorites in the MOP market?
I wouldn't trend to the favorites here. Like you said, I don't think this is a great matchup for Cooper Flag. I don't think it's a situation where, well, I mean, look, these teams are all, when we're talking about one seeds, these are all fantastic teams with multiple options. I think the main point I would say, I don't know if I have a long shot for you. Roberts makes sense because he's probably, if Houston wins, he's probably the reason. Uh, I think he does draw a really awful matchup against Auburn if that's what that matchup ends up being. So there's the counter there. Um, but the one thing I would say in this conversation is I wouldn't take a favorite because I don't think the value's there.
I'm with you. A couple long shots that I had circled, and kind of goes back to the fact that I think Auburn is not only undervalued when you look at national title odds at this point, and we're obviously on the opposite end of the stick on that take when you look at their latter performances, at least end of the regular season. They're one or two games in the SEC tournament. Miles Kelly and Denver Jones at 125 to 1. I don't hate. And maybe you don't like the Kelly matchup just based on the way that Florida is going to make Auburn score. But if we go back to a few years ago, and this market in general is a crapshoot. I wrote this up over at thelines.com. With the UNC and Kansas title game, looking at that one in particular, Agbaji had a huge semifinal against UNC. Right.
I
McCormick
had that.
does. You had that. Did you have McCormick?
No, I had Igbaji.
Oh, you had Agbaji.
Oh no,
Okay.
sorry, I had McCormick and Igbaji won it, and I was like, it's clearly McCormick. What are we doing here?
Right. Exactly. And Agbaji doesn't do much. Voters have to vote on the award 10 minutes before the game ends.
I can't do it.
So, right. With
Oh,
the
Lord.
mold of Agbaji in mind, Kelly at 125 to 1 for a guy that could go off if you think Auburn can win it all. So it depends on what side of the teeter-totter you're on in regards to the Tigers. I think Kelly is worth a look. And then also with Denver Jones and his two-way prowess, he could also score, not just a defensive stopper. I kind of like those two numbers as couch change long shots. Any long shots on the board for you that, like, for instance, with Florida, Hauk and Condon are, Hauk is 50 to 1, Condon is 100 to 1. Scrolling down a little bit further, Sion James for Duke is 200 to 1 if he hits a few threes against Houston and does the dirty work in the national championship game. Anything there or just stay away?
I would actually probably second your Miles Kelly one. It touches on a lot of things we've said so far. I mean, he took 18 shots against Florida in that first game, which was seven more than any other guard. And if we're talking about variance, he's been awful 3 games in a row. So if there's a breakout coming, now would be the time. And then the other thing would be if Auburn does get past Florida, this is a good guard matchup, whoever they play in that next round, because of Duke's switching and because of Houston's trapping. There's going to be open threes to be had off of swing action. So I think that if if Auburn wins the tournament, there's a real chance that Broom isn't the most standing player, and then it's just like who hits the most threes. So if you want to chuck a dart, then Kelly, who's definitely the least bashful of the shooters and is on a 3 game shooting slump, maybe he's the right choice.
Yeah. Because you look at Hauk, for instance, and after his 2 big games, like if we want to talk about trying to mine for value, and maybe he just carries it over into the Final Four, and if Florida advances into the national championship, but he was a big reason why Florida maybe not took down Maryland, but covered the number, blew them out. And then obviously a huge reason why, outside of Walter Clayton Jr., Florida came back and won the game against Texas Tech. If you're looking in the line of negative variance, or maybe Condon and his role escalating a bit in the Final Four just based on health and fouls, etc. That's why I think Hauk's number is too short at this point.
Yeah, very reasonable. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And the only thing is there, it's kind of similar to Auburn's guards, where it's like, is it a Hauck game? Is it a Condon game? Is it a guard game? There's just so many different ways that Florida could come at you that I can see why those odds are what they are.
Any last words here on either game, on the Final Four in general? We'll be back to handicap the national championship game, whatever the matchup is. But any closing thoughts for Saturday's matchups?
Uh, Well, I'm surprised we didn't break down the college basketball crown game earlier in the day. No, I don't even know who's playing. No, look, at the beginning of the tournament, I would stand on my poll and I post, and we talked about this, and I said I think at least three number one seeds will make the final four, and we got all four of them. It's going to be fantastic basketball, and whether my bets hit or not, whether I make money or lose money, it's going to be a fantastic viewing experience. And I think that given the amount of flack that this tournament has gotten over the last 3 weeks, I think that we all deserve some fantastic games.
I don't know if I'm there with you in regards to my lack of sweatiness for the Auburn Florida game because
Okay,
I have a
yes.
potential, pretty
I
big
don't have
payout.
that crazy number future that you do. I have Duke plus 285, so we're on different platforms here.